Hey guys, MK here. I'm going to be doing a race driver grid tutorial series this time around to talk about the intricacies of the game and all the other things that I've learned throughout my playtime so far, and to hopefully introduce new players on how to speedrun this game. This video is not a super basics video. I will not be going over what the gas pedal is, what the brake is, and other simple controls, but I will be assuming that you've already played the game a bit before, as this video's topic will be talking about the basics of drifting, one of the more advanced topics in the game. So we have a few topics of discussion today. The first is talking about the general setup. I'll be talking about how to set up your cars and tracks in the test drive mode of the game. By doing this, you're able to practice specific turns and tracks with whatever car you want. And secondly, we'll be talking about the methods for starting a drift. And after you've started the drift, we're going to go over the basics of how to stay in that drift and also straighten out at the end. We'll only be going over two simple methods this time, as all the other methods will be in a more advanced video later on. First off, we'll talk about the general setup. After you've completed a couple of driving offers at the beginning of the game, you're able to go into Grid World, and then go into View Cars, and pick any car under the three categories here. Personally, I'll be talking about the Japanese drift cars, so I'm going to go into Japan, and then pick any of the drift cars in that category. Once you pick a car, you can click on Test Drive, and then from there you can pick your region, location, and track. All these have different tickers, so USA, Europe, or Japan, and then under that they have the locations like Shibuya, Okutama, etc. And then once you're inside the location, you can then pick the tracks inside that location. Each track has its own world record time, although the world record is only stored onto your local save file, as the world records are simply deemed by codemasters, not by actual online leaderboards. But from here you can race the track as much as you want, iron out the times, improve your times, and submit them online. And now that we have our game all set up, let's talk about the methods for starting a drift. First is to go fast and turn left and right. This one's pretty simple, and the example will be pretty short. You pretty much just go really fast, turn really hard, and hold down the gas as you turn to make yourself spin out. Second is to go fast, turn left and right, but downshift somewhere in between. So if you're in the middle of a drift, you can downshift to get more angle on your drift just by downshifting once or twice. Third is to use the handbrake. I'll be talking about the timing and how long to hold it, but the handbrake helps you slip into a drift instead of simply turning. Next is to use the hardbrake. This is very similar to using the handbrake, the only difference is that you'll be going through a corner much slower. If you're to approach a hairpin or a corner that has you take it in 5th or 6th gear, you'll be able to hardbrake into it and slip into a drift. So we'll move on to our first topic, which is go fast and turn left and right. This one's very easy to get into, but it's not very applicable to most of the turns and tracks. It is still very important to know though. So here's a quick clip of a simple example of this topic. He pretty much just goes to a corner and starts turning and hold down the gas. Our second method is to downshift in the middle of those beginning left and right turns. Having those downshifts in there will help us widen our angle as we start to begin our drift. This method is a little bit different compared to the first one because you have to let go of the gas and downshift as you're turning at the same time. You should get into the habit of letting go of the gas, downshifting, and then putting your finger back on the gas all the way. However, be careful to not downshift too much. Depending on your gear, you may only have to downshift once or twice. If you're to downshift too much, you'll lose all your speed and your angle, and you'll be exiting the corner at a very slow speed. The third method is to use the handbrake. The timing to do this is a little bit tough. You must hold it for a different time for each turn, but once you practice it, each turn can feel more or less the same. The gist of this method is to simply let go of the gas, tap the B button or the X button as it is defaultly mapped, and simply let the car spin in whatever direction you're currently facing to let yourself slide into the drift. From there you can shift down or put your foot to the floor or whatever you want to make yourself be able to finish the drift. We're going to play this clip again in regular motion to give you an idea of how quick the timing is and to give you an idea of how to time it for yourself. The big trick to this method is to simply hold the button until you think you're going to spin out. I believe it's easier to scale back the timing that's a little bit too far and spinning out more often than to extend a time that's too short. Our next method is to use the hardbrake. This one's a little bit different compared to the handbrake because you'll be going a lot slower as you exit the drift and the timing's a little bit different. But the inputs are almost exactly the same, which means it's a little bit easier to learn. As per the handbrake method, we'll be going into the corner already turning left to right, letting go of the gas, and then putting our foot all the way on the brake. By doing this, we're able to have our car spin to one side while losing a lot of speed. To be able to finish the drift, you may have to downshift once or twice depending on the corner, or you may even have to go into first gear and lightly tap the gas to make yourself go through that corner. The big difference between this method and the handbrake method is that you have to let go of your analog stick input as you're inputting the brake. The handbrake method lets your car slide by simply turning in the entire time, whereas the hardbrake itself will already do that, so you have to let go of that analog stick to be able to do this method. We're going to play the two methods side by side to give you an idea of how the inputs work and how they're different. And so now that we know the methods and how to start our drifts, we're going to talk about the ways to stay in them. We'll be going over two methods today, which are pretty basic and easy to build upon, and more advanced methods will be shown in later videos. The first method is by doing what's called a countersteer. In short, doing a countersteer is basically pushing your car's wheels to the opposite side that you're spinning, which will help you be able to straighten out or be able to adjust your angle as you go through the turn. The good thing about countersteering is that it's very easy to perform. You just simply spin one way and tilt the analog stick in the opposite direction. The hard part is being able to time it and being able to use the analog stick inputs from 0 to 100% to be able to countersteer effectively. In this example, it's important to show that countersteering with the right timing is really helpful. Once I started my drift via the handbrake method, I had to countersteer right away because if I didn't, I would have spun out for sure. And next we'll move on to a topic called gas tuning. It's a term that I've created to basically say you'll use the triggers on the back for the gas and the brake to be able to fine-tune your drifts through only the gas or a combination of gas and countersteering. In terms of this video, I'll only be talking about one simple method, which is to oscillate your gas percentage from 0 to 100 only, off and on. It'll be at a set interval so you can get an idea of how your percentage change affects how the angle is changed. I'll be explaining this a bit more as we go along. The general concept of this method is to simply put your finger on the gas all the way and then let go, and then put it back on all the way after a certain amount of time. You can change the timing of this interval if you want, but in terms of this video I've made it pretty simple and very quick. We're going to play that same example again in normal speed just to give you an idea of how quick that timing is. And if you want, you can take this concept and change it from 0 to 100 to whatever you want, and bring in some countersteering to wrap it all up into a smooth drift. And so now that we know all the basics for drifting, I'll be talking about some small notes that I think were important but didn't deserve their own topic. One of the most important notes here is that this tutorial is not specific to the Japanese cars, and also not specific to the test drive mode. You can use any car you want, and you can drive on any track you want. There are a ton of modes I didn't go over in this video, simply because the drifting mechanics apply to all those modes on their own. And lastly is to simply practice. You should always be practicing in this game if you want to get better, especially if you want to do speedrunning, because a lot of this game comes down to feeling the car out. Some cars handle differently, some might be more slippery than others, four-wheel drive versus rear-wheel drive versus forward-wheel drive. All these things come into consideration, but you can always iron it out through practice. And if you decide to speedrun this game and practice it a ton and you really like this video, feel free to submit your times over at speedrun.com. I have created a page for this game where you can submit your times and go up against the leaderboards. So I just wanted to say thank you guys for watching, especially if you watched it all the way through. I'll be leaving all the important links and stuff in the description, and any comments you have, feel free to leave them in the comment section below. I'll see you guys in the next video. Take care.